Hello and welcome to Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. By and for school administrators, this podcast is intended to promote candid discussion and insight about our great profession. My name is Rick Sola, and as Communications Director for the Kansas Principals Association, I am the host, but I am certainly not the feature. Sit back, take a sip, and enjoy. This is Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another edition of Cool Coffee. I have here with me today a very familiar voice, the original voice of the KPA podcast when it was Kansas Principals. Listen up. It's Mr. Trevor Goertzen from SchoolAI. Hello, Trevor.
Oh, man. I have not heard that phrase for a while, Rick. Excited to be here and appreciate the opportunity to share with Kansas administrators and a little bit about the history of the Listen Up podcast and now Cool Coffee by Rick Sola. So love it, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity.
No, it's awesome. And I guess before we get started, I will just give you a quick shout out. So you did your podcast, and I've listened to several of those, and we talked, and you were more than willing to receive my outreach and talk through with me how you did your podcast, and so much of how this got started, I credit to you. So really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, and now it's awesome to have you here on the show talking about your new endeavor with artificial intelligence and SchoolAI.
You're going to scare some people off talking about AI too much here, Rick. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. If you had asked me, 3 years ago, if I would be in my home office talking about AI, I would have never believed it. I had always anticipated being a principal and then an HR director and a superintendent. And that is what I assumed my career path would be when I had the honor of serving as a teacher and principal. And the good Lord had different plans, though. And I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to continue working with teachers, continue working with students through the capacity I do now at SchoolAI. And it's been a challenge to get out of. Directly being within the school systems. There's definitely some things you get used to when you spend the majority of your career within kind of the day-to-day ebb and flow of public education, and then you step out of that into startup culture. It is a drastic shift, and it's a change that I'm still getting used to as I enter my third year of being out, and no longer specifically. But I still teach. I still teach for a university in Arkansas. So I'm an adjunct professor. I teach education law and I teach educational technology. So that'll be about my 7th, 8th year of doing that. So I still like to say I'm an active educator at the collegiate level. I teach graduate school, and so that keeps me as engaged as possible. And every once in a while, I think about coming back and subbing just for the fun of it, just to get back in the school building and sub some. But I'm not sure about that. I don't know, Rick, if you ever need any subs.
We do need subs, actually, and we'll take dibs on you here. Actually, subs can be a short supply, especially as we get into some of these, some of these colder months, or even the warmer months, or Fridays, or Tuesdays, or whatever.
Red Friday, Red Monday. You pick it. You pick it.
As we record this, it's January 3rd, and we're like on the cusp of Snowmageddon as it's getting talked about, a couple days away from, up to 15 inches or something. So who knows? But
we'll see.
You mentioned, kind of being out of the school for the last 3 years. One thing I like to do on the show is have guests share about their road to the chair that they're currently in. And you've gone through the principal chair, but kind of going all the way back to your beginnings in education to what led you here today.
Yeah. So started in 2001, even in college. I went to Harding University in Arkansas, and even then I was starting to fill in schools and help out. And I knew I wanted to be a teacher from a very early age, and so I knew that was the path I wanted. So we even started doing a little bit of subbing while I was in college, but I got my first job at Prairie Star Middle School, Blue Valley Schools, in 2006. I spent 9 years in the classroom as a social studies and English language arts teacher, coached football, wrestling, track and field, driver's ed instructor, summer camp counselor. I was an 1860s reenactor at Mahaffey Stagecoach, and I was a blacksmith for a couple summers. Like, You do a little
Awesome.
bit of everything when you're a teacher just to make extra cash and stay busy.
Yep.
One of the highlights, though, is I got my national board certification in my 8th year of teaching. And so I went through the national board process. That was an incredible process. Still, I think one of the most beneficial things an educator can do is go through the national board process as a teacher. From there, I went and worked at district office in Blue Valley for a year. I was essentially what you might call like an instructional coach. We were called the educational support team at the time. Name changes every couple of years. But I was a mentor for first-year teachers as well as national board candidates. Spent a year doing that. Absolutely loved it. As you know, when you kind of change levels, you change perspectives. And when I had that position with the district in Blue Valley, I had 30,000 students, 30-some schools. I went from knowing about what was going on in one middle school to now I'm looking at 9 middle schools, 5 high schools, 30 elementaries, and it changes your perspective on how education works and how it operates. And that was a really pivotal year for me when I worked in district office, but it also made me realize I wanted to get back to kids. And so that following year, an opportunity at Spring Hill came up, and I headed to Spring Hill. And I spent 6 years as the principal, assistant, and then principal in Spring Hill Middle School. That was pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. So I still vividly remember Friday the 13th.
Best of all worlds.
Friday the 13th, Black Friday that year. I just hired the best teacher ever, and I was so excited because we were like, can we bring her in for an interview? This is Friday the 13th. We're like, we're doing it. We know there's something out there, but she's coming in. Still one of the best teachers I've ever hired in the Mississippi. But yeah, that was a real turning point in a lot of ways. Was those years of COVID. It really kind of made you kind of pause, think back, and reflect. Had an incredible staff in those 6 years in Spring Hill. It was a 6-8 building, a great team, front office staff, the assistants that I worked with, the coaches, administration. Really, really enjoyed it. But one of the things I loved the most about my time as a principal was the Kansas Principals Association. And at the time, it was actually broken up into elementary and secondary. And so we had essentially two different organizations that operated, your elementary principal association and your secondary principals association. And so about midway through, we merged those together into the Kansas Principals Association. And that was an incredible experience, both as a part of it. And then I don't even remember when midway through, I got to know the then director of it, a gentleman named Brett Church. He asked me if I had any interest in being the communication director. I was like, this sounds like fun. What does it do? He's like, I don't know, figure it out. And so somewhere along the way, I think I just heard myself and the other principal, Ron Sprague, I just heard George Couros talk. And one of the things that George Couros had said was something to the extent of, if you're not telling your story, someone else will. And that made me really realize that people don't know what's going on in a school. They don't know. They have all these assumptions about what's happening, but they really didn't know what was going on day to day. So the original dream was, let's interview Kansas principals and let's have them tell their school story. Tell them the highs, the lows, the good, the bad that's going on, and try to humanize administrators. And so that's really where it started. Was Listen Up was designed to humanize Kansas principals, Kansas administrators, tell the stories that other people are not going to hear. And it was so cool. It just not only for me professionally, and I'm sure you've noticed this, Rick, like you learn more when you hear someone else share, but getting to hear what people are doing across the state, whether it was in small little Galena, Kansas, or a big district like Olathe. And I forget his name now, but at the time he was Olathe South High School principal. Now he's somewhere there in the board office.
Clint Albers.
He did an episode. I shared it with the superintendent at the time, and he then shared it out to the entire district and shared it out in the parent and community email. It gives a source of pride. And that was what I would actually hear again and again from superintendents, even from board members. There was a source of pride when the community could hear what was going on with their administrators. And that was such a cool experience to know that we were a part of that at KPA, is sharing the stories, learning together, celebrating what each and every different school was a part of. So what started out as just kind of an idea because of a George Couros session kind of blossomed into 3 years of a great experience sharing with principals across Kansas. And so glad you're able to carry it forward, Rick, and continue to keep bringing those voices out for administrators as well.
Well, it has been a lot of fun, and that's one of the biggest values. And I've said this multiple times on this show, but just that the connections from across the state, hearing what's going on across the state, and my goal, if you will, is to share those really positive things that are happening all across the state, buildings all across the state, with others in the same position. And just in my time with KPA and sitting down next to principals in other communities in other parts of the state, and there's just so much value in that. You can't replace it. And then, of course, and you probably know this selfishly, just being the one to be able to converse with principals on this platform, I'm learning a ton. I'm taking notes as I'm having these conversations, and that's my hope, is that someone's listening and being able to do the same thing and kind of scratch their head like, oh, that's a really good idea. I've done this for 20 years, but I haven't thought of it that way before. And so let's give it a shot.
It doesn't matter where it comes from. It could be itty bitty schools, huge schools. They all have great ideas and great things to share.
Yeah. So you are in a different world now. You're in an artificial world. No, artificial intelligence.
Sometimes it feels like it.
But, with my own staff, and in full transparency, I guess to kind of make a long story short, back to USA, Kansas in the spring of 24, my administrative team, we went, and one of my assistant principals attended an AI session, and we started talking about this throughout the course of the school year. And we had both of us, ironically, had connections to you, and reached out. And so the full transparency is I asked you to come out and just kind of present a little bit on AI. And I described it to my staff as the new frontier. And I don't know if that's totally accurate, or Trevor, if you would even agree with that, but I kind of just view it as it's, at least at our point, the way I feel anyway, is it's very much there's a lot of unknown. We're not really sure. We have some story. You talk about telling your story. Some people will tell the AI story, and it can be pretty either bleak or scary, or it could be something that's something different altogether. But you came in, did a great job, super engaging, just to kind of bring some insight as what does AI, or what can it look like inside the schools, and that's what I'd love to hear and have you share on this show, just a little bit about that in particular, artificial intelligence in the schools.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that I was not a fan of AI. Even when I first heard about SchoolAI, which is the opportunity I serve now with SchoolAI, at the time, I was working for an esports company, and that's actually what led me out of education originally, was the opportunity to work for a company called Generation Esports. Had never planned on leaving, but was in DC at an awards event and was approached to come join an esports team and help schools grow their esports programs. I was like, I don't even like video games, but I see the value in having a team for every kid. And so that's part of what led me to step out of administration. Was getting ready to open a brand new middle school, was going to be the KPA president the next year. Things were going good, but I think it was time for a change. I think we all have that time in our life where, like, I think I just want to do something different for a little bit. Midpoint in my career, let's mix it up. But fast forward a little over a year ago, I met the founder of SchoolAI at an event. And at the time, I was very much opposed to AI. All I could see was the downsides. I didn't see any benefit in it. All I saw was that he wiping out critical thinking skills, wiping out independent work, wiping out anything that forced someone to kind of challenge themselves. And I kind of viewed it as the ultimate easy button for students, for staff, for a lot of people. But what I come to find out, specifically with SchoolAI and others, is AI becomes a tool for the purpose you have. And we say frequently at SchoolAI, AI is not the thing, it's the thing that gets you to the thing. So when you look at it as a tool to help you as an educator, maybe it's expand your skills, to reach individual students that you could never reach before, to give a voice to the voiceless child, that's what made me go, oh, there's something really, really special here. And I remember the founder of SchoolAI talking about giving his own son a personalized chatbot to help him with his classwork. And that really struck me as, oh man, we all have those students. We all have those students that struggle to work, struggle to keep up. And the reality is there's just not enough time in the day or enough staff in the day to keep up with that. As much as we try, it's just not there. But AI can come alongside and do that. And so when I thought about all the scary things at doing the work, and I started to go, wait a minute, there's some really innovative, personal, special ways that the right AI resource can support what a teacher's doing, to enhance what a teacher's doing, to give a voice to students who had no voice before. It really changed my mind on what AI is all about. And since then, I'm a total convert. I'm a total convert. I use AI in so many different aspects of my personal life, professional life, whether it is building and developing like personal fitness plans for myself, whether it is using it to, I used it the other night. I was teaching a Bible class out of my church, and I used it to help me build my lessons because it gave me depth of learning that I wouldn't have been able to find otherwise. And so what AI allows you to do is gain knowledge base that is already out there, but you're gaining it faster and more efficiently and at the pace and rate in which you want. So when you think about individual students, you have a kid who's sitting in a 6th grade math classroom that is just lost and behind. No matter how much that teacher wants to get back there, there's 30 other kids they have to meet with. But you give that kid their own personal chatbot, a SchoolAI space, and now they have their own individual tutor, their own individual assistant, but the teacher's the one that drives that experience. Man, I want every kid to have that. I want every kid to have their own support.
So kind of paint that picture. So I'm trying to picture a classroom. I'm a former social studies teacher myself, and you're working with the other 30 students, and you've got one or two that they're getting some help. They need your help. You need to kind of peel away and address other parts of the classroom, other students. You talk about a personal assistant. Paint that picture for us. What is that literally going to look like in the classroom?
Yep. So and I'll be very specific with SchoolAI, just to be really candid. There's other resources out there than just ours. But what I love about SchoolAI is SchoolAI uses the same engines or same large language models that you would personally use if you went to Claude, Copilot, OpenAI, or ChatGPT. But those engines have filters and parameters built into to make it more educationally sound and educationally appropriate. So whatever information you put in it is not used to train it. And also when that information comes back to the user, it's more educationally minded. It's filtered for inaccuracy. It ensures that it's not going to say anything inappropriate, whether it's racial or sexual or gambling or alcohol. It doesn't allow that to take place. So you're giving a student a chat bot that uses OpenAI, Anthropic Claude, but you as a teacher design it. So if a young first year, Mr. Rick Sola is in his classroom and he has kids on the high and the low end, you could quickly go to SchoolAI and create a space, and you could call it Little Billy's Helper. And you could literally say, support Billy in his classwork. Do not give answers, only provide feedback. You can what we call launch, which is share. So think like a Kahoot. You share a link, you share a QR code, you share it through Google Classroom, and you tell Billy, hey, jump on, your assistant is ready to help you. So when that student joins that space or their thought partner, their chat bot, it begins a series of Socratic-style conversations with the student. It might say, hey, Billy, what can I help you with today? Billy says, I don't get it. The AI will respond back, what don't you get? I don't get class. And then it'll say something of, what about class do you not understand? I don't understand immigration. Okay, so now as AI is listening to what Billy's saying, it's adapting, it's making suggestions, and it's providing help and support to clarify for that individual student. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you have a student that is highly advanced and so far ahead of the classroom, you build them a space, you launch it to them, and now they're going further and deeper than anyone in the class is because now they're going to go at the pace that they want to go. But the beautiful thing about SchoolAI is for Mr. First Year Teacher Rick Sola, he can then see everything those students are saying and doing within that chat space. So he can go back and see, what is Billy asking about? What gaps does Billy have that I can go back and support? So again, it's not replacing what Rick is doing as a teacher. It's only giving him more insights that he had before. So you're supporting your student, but you're also giving the teacher insight to then provide additional resources, learning for that individual student.
So as you work, because I know you work with schools really all across the country now.
Yep.
And I'm sure you encounter some different pushback or concerns or fears even. What's the most common thing that you hear that's really kind of the thanks but no thanks mentality? What is shared from the school perspective?
Yeah, it used to be data privacy or data concerns. That has kind of gone away as people understand more about what is actually going on with student data. So that PII is a common one. And that's kind of one of the important things about going with someone like SchoolAI is that we do have the ability to secure the data. It's not going out and used by the AI companies, which when you use OpenAI, it is, but you have that security piece. The other thing that people are always concerned about is it's just going to make kids dumber. They'll even tell me that it's going to make them dumber. They're not going to have to think for themselves because it's going to do it for them. And that's a total misunderstanding of what AI is designed to do. Now, could it do that? 100%. You could design, or you could give a kid access to ChatGPT, and it could write every term paper that kid ever needs. It can do that. But that's not what something like a SchoolAI is designed to do. SchoolAI is designed to be a thought partner for that student and keep them within the parameters and boundaries that the teacher designed. And so once somebody sees that, it's like, oh, now I see that it's like a bowling alley. When you lift those bumpers, the kid has to stay within the lane of those bumpers. So once somebody sees that, they understand it, then it's like this, it's like the blinders fall off and I'm like, okay, now I get why this would be beneficial. And once you kind of get past those data privacy fears and the kids are just going to cheat fears, now it's like, let's go. Now there's some things we can do to help kids out.
So is it accurate to say this is like you've created an ecosystem? Is that the right word, or is it? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I like that word, and I'll even use that word specifically with like SchoolAI, as we've created an academic ecosphere, because not only do you use it for like individual student support, student tutoring, you also can use it for, like, we have schools that within our chatbots or spaces, you can upload or download your HR handbooks, your training manuals, your student handbooks, and then you can use and create a chatbot that helps people get any question answered that is within those handbooks. So if you have a new student to campus who knows nothing about Chisholm Trail, and you give them access to that SchoolAI space, any question they have about school is going to reference back to the handbook that is there. Now, would they have flipped through that handbook? Probably not. But might they ask the chatbot a question? Yeah, that's something that's a little more easy to do. And so you have the ability to have a more broad scope support system.
So I'm going to make sure I understand, and maybe for listeners, I have the school handbook, the 550 page or whatever it is, school handbook.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. Yeah, it's very thorough.
Yes.
Now, but that gets uploaded through SchoolAI. It's in the system, and I create the space. Parents can get to it, whether linked through a website or shared or whatever the case, and they go in there and like, what's the lunch policy? Are they allowed to go into the snack line or whatever, and they just type it in and it just responds like Ask Jeeves back in the day? Is that kind of the deal?
I haven't heard somebody describe it like that, but 100%, Rick, that's exactly
what it's going to do. That's how far back I go, Trevor. So.
Yes. No, that's exactly it. Is it's going to reference to the information provided. And so that's kind of the beautiful thing, is you can give it its data source to ensure that it's being accurate and it's being consistent with what you want it to do. Now, 550 pages might be too big for the platform to hold, but like where we're headed as a like SchoolAI is the ability for its school district. So Olathe Public Schools, Spring Hill Schools, Cimarron Valley Schools. Like, you can upload and give it access to all of your district-wide information. training manuals, handbooks, guide, Board of Education, curriculum resources, and then everything a teacher builds or all the spaces they build reference back to those materials and items. So then you ensure that everything it's designing are based upon the district priorities and district guidelines. That's where things are going with it. Even the ability to give individual students, I'm going to go back to little Rick Sola in second grade, who starts using a space that starts to learn how he thinks and how he operates and starts providing you assistance based upon the areas that you struggle. Not doing it for you, but providing assistance and support. That's when you start to go, man, it gets bigger and bigger on what it's going to do. And then you start thinking about these equity conversations about every kid needs access and there's no barriers. It doesn't matter where you live, you have access to those resources.
So for the record, our handbook is not 550 pages. Just for the record, I don't need any added judgment out there, but no, one thing that we had talked about before, and you actually had demoed this for me, and just incredible. And I think about the diverse languages that we have all across our state. And you talk about the handbook, a family that's new. It's January. We're all coming back from break. I know our building's got a few new students from different parts of the state, different parts of the country, and in some cases, different parts of the world, but English not being a native language.
Yeah.
That demo that you showed as far as how quickly and easily the language translation occurs, but is that something can you describe that? In the classroom, real-time use of interpretation.
So I met a student. His name was Suleiman. Now, Suleiman was a sixth grade student in Jordan, Utah, which is a suburb of Salt Lake City. Suleiman is a refugee student. He came to the U.S. earlier this was December of last year. So he came in early fall of 2023, I think it would have been. He's staying with the host family, so he's not even with his own family. He speaks very, very little English. When he came to the middle school, his principal, Eric Price, built for him a SchoolAI space. And it spoke English and Dari at the same time. Dari was the language he spoke in Afghanistan. No one else on the school campus spoke Dari. The boy also loved Lionel Messi in the Premier League. So the principal within the prompt said, Suleiman loves the Premier League, loves Lionel Messi. And so what Suleiman would use the space for is when he's sitting in class, he would ask questions. And oftentimes the questions were more questions not about his ability, but about a language issue. So he shared one example of he was sitting in math class and the teacher was talking about slope. And Suleiman, he showed me the chat so I could see it. He showed me the chat. He had asked, what is slope? Now, he is asking it in Dari. It's responding both in Dari and English to help him learn English. But in the response, it referenced a mountain range in Afghanistan. And so for him, not only did it give him the answer, but it gave him a visualization that only AI could provide, referencing a mountain range that he knew in Afghanistan. So when you think about it's complex, but simple version is you take that kid who is a non-English speaking or limited English proficiency, and now you're giving them their own personal tutor that can operate in their native language and in the language you're trying to help them learn in the United States. So for them, it becomes their own personal assistant and guide. And for a kid who felt lost and didn't have anyone to ask, there's no one else that knew Dari in that school, but his AI chatbot did. So that's where he'd go for help.
You hit on something there that's really just an important piece, which is that language versus ability. And how many times are we working with students who you may not have the strength in the language that's being taught, and so it's being interpreted as some form of learning disability.
They don't need special ed services. It's just,
that's
man.
I go back to, and I just outed myself a little bit ago about how far back I go when I referenced Ask Jeeves.
Yeah.
But I do remember when Google came onto the scene.
Yeah.
And I was an early social studies teacher, and it was a district professional development day. I'm in a room with a bunch of all levels of social studies teachers, and we're having this debate on Google and whether it should be used in the classroom or not. And you had two camps. You had those who, kind of like what you're saying about AI, it's going to make kids dumber. They're going to cheat. It's not going to help them grow. And then on the other side was, Google's here to stay, and we can teach them how to use it and use some discernment as they look up information. Not everything's going to be applicable. It kind of reminds me of where we're at a little bit with AI. I don't see AI going anywhere. I definitely have appreciated most recently on Amazon. I have the AI generated feedback of kind of all the ratings that just kind of summarized in a nice little form. I don't see AI going away, but I do think it's important that you had used the phrase before, AI literacy. I think we need to think about AI literacy and AI responsibility and how that's going to look in our schools, and probably something that we need to start being really proactive about teaching our kids about kind of the good AI and the maybe the bad AI, or how to discern AI.
Yeah, totally. Well, and again, it comes back to what world are we trying to set our kids up for? Are we setting them up for the ability to be independent thinkers, have wisdom and discernment? In the same way that we're having those debates with the Google versus a kid reading something or going to an encyclopedia, we've continued to evolve and change how knowledge is accessed. And so the ability to teach someone to critically think and go, is this real? I think I shared the example this morning. I saw a video yesterday of a cat making spaghetti, and it was the most perfect video of a cat dicing carrots and browning hamburger and making noodles. And I mean, by golly, if you didn't know any better, you would really think that was making it 100% AI generated. You still have to have the ability to look at something, hear something, read something, go, I need to confirm that this is correct and accurate. But on the same note, how do you do that? Because there might be situations that you need to be able to use and create and build content, develop resources that utilize those different AI platforms. So to just assume a kid will figure it out later, eventually, but how many students can we look at that have a leg up because they learned to read a little bit earlier in life? They're exposed to resources earlier in life. What does that do for them down the road? We know it's significant. I believe it's going to have a similar impact to the AI.
Yeah, it's not just about the learning the content, but in that situation you shared with the multiple languages at once, it's teaching a student how to read and write English along with their native language. And so, just really incredible. So as I sit here, I'm a principal of a middle school building, and other principals listening, what do I, as a principal, need to know about AI right now?
Yeah. So what I'm going to tell you is I wouldn't be surprised if half your students are already using it on their cell phones every day. Is that they're on ChatGPT. I have a niece that's in a local school district. She's a sophomore. Her school district does not believe in AI, so she pays for her own ChatGPT turbo subscription. She uses that on her phone throughout the day. Now, she's using her resources because she knows it's helping her be a better student. Had a school provided her with that, she would have the same power, both in a more constructive, guided environment. So the first thing I'll tell you is more than likely, students are using it. They're already accessing it on a variety of devices in a variety of ways. And the second thing I'd kind of lean to is the idea that to save your staff a lot of time and effort and give your staff back the day-to-day work that they were doing before that is remedial stuff. There's a lot that AI can do to support individual teacher time. So whether it's lesson planning, emails, content creation, idea generation, AI can accelerate that and allow the teachers to work more directly with kids to meet those SEL needs at a deeper level. So the thing I tell a principal is it's there. If you think it's not, it is. If your district's afraid of it, take a step back and really investigate what it's doing versus what maybe you're hearing on social media or you're hearing on select news channels that are telling you what is incorrectly actually happening with AI. And I also encourage you to be brave and try. Take little small groups of teachers, try things out, use different resources out there. OpenAI is great. Just go to ChatGPT, use Perplexity. You don't have to pay for a subscription service to have great resources. There's a lot of good options out there for you.
So in a quick rapid fire, 2 or 3 things,
Yep.
what could AI do to make my day easier so I can be out mixing in with kids and building those relationships? Because one thing we haven't touched on, but and I know your view on this, which is AI is not here to replace a relationship. Just because you have a digital tutor with you, that's not replacing the teacher relationship, which is also so valuable. If I want to really maintain that, what would be something, 2 or 3 things that you could say, hey, right now you could have AI help you with this and you're freed up to do some other things?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, kind of long-term planning. And I think that's a big one as far as when you're looking at and not having to spend as much time on long-term planning within a lesson environment. Second thing being emails and responding back to emails. One of the things I love to do is have it read through and summarize emails for me. I think that's been a real benefit for me. And then even one of the things that you can do is it expedites your thoughts and gives you quicker responses when you're working through problems and situations. So you have a challenging student, a challenging staff member, an environment that you're not quite sure what to do with. Ask AI, ask co-teacher, ask ChatGPT, how do I handle this situation? And you'll quickly find that it gives you responses and allows you to move quicker because you have more access to information. So whether it's I don't know what to do with this particular student, throw it out there to OpenAI and see what ideas it gives you. That's probably one of the quickest things that I've done for time saving is it allows me to get through content faster. And the last thing I'll throw out too is summarizing large amounts of information. So if I have a document to read, if I have a district policy to go through, if I have something from state level or even a piece of literature I want, put that in one of the AI prompts and ask it to summarize it for you. Boom, you're going to have like 3 quick summarization points of what you were just supposed to read and allows you to move through things quicker and faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, I imagine too with some of the maybe quick turnaround of certain emails, it could be a really good starting point. I always feel like whether it's a communication I've been asked to send, I always like to kind of read through it. I want my voice there, that sort of thing. Do you have any guidance for just general discernment when it comes to, I guess, how accurate is the information? Do we rely on, hey, 100% it's accurate, or hey, kind of like Google back in the day, it's really good, but it might not be, you got to use some discernment on that and make sure you're sharing good information.
So here's my first thought, and this hopefully it's not counter what I say. Don't outsource your brain to AI. One of the things that I have already found is there's an easy button there if you want to use it. I could have it respond to every email, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. I don't think that's the best thing to do. There's a lot of things that you're going to start seeing people do, even when it comes to like AI avatars that do trainings for you. There's going to be a temptation, Rick, for you guys as a staff, as an administrative team, to have AI create and do your trainings for you, do your PDs for you. There might be a perk and benefit to that because it saves you time from having to get in front and do some of those trainings. But you lose that personal connection piece. You could have it do let's call it the Russell Flat, the Jason Flat Act. You could have it do those trainings for you, but you miss out on some of those personalization conversations you have when you go through that training together. So one thing I encourage people is don't outsource your brain to AI and ensure that you're still the one that's driving what it's doing and how it's operating. And don't be afraid to hit pause on it and be like, I don't think that's correct. That doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah, I think that's where, judgment is so critical. We're in the people business. We have, there's so much that comes our way, and it could be easy to turn on that, like you said, that easy button. But at the end of the day, it's the relationships, it's the connections, and that's what we all thrive on. And that's honestly, that's what we are promoting as part of our schools, is that those connections. And so, I'll give a quick example, and I think I shared this to you before, but last year I had an opening for a position, and I received a really nice little cover letter email, and I read it, and it was without a doubt, AI generated. It was very, very machine sounding and impersonal, and more than anything, it was just using language that didn't fit the building I'm in or anything.
Yeah.
And, that was such a glaring example of, don't just turn on the easy button. It's like not hitting spell check at the end of a document. It's maybe a great place to start, but you got to make it your own and not turn it over to the machines, if you will.
I had someone say, we'll know it's authentic when there's spelling and grammar errors. Now you're gonna try to have some spelling and grammar errors, because AI won't let that happen unless you tell it to. You could tell your prompt to make this sound like it was written by a third grader, and it's going to, and that's what kids will do when they turn things in, so it's not looking like it's AI generated, so it beats the AI detectors. The last thing I will say is AI detections, don't spend your money on it. There's a lot of districts that don't want to spend a lot of money on AI detection systems. They just don't work. And that's not because I work for an AI company. That's because they're consistently shown to be inconsistent. And if anything, they're shown to be very discriminatory towards non-English speakers, because the pace in which a non-English speaker will type or write oftentimes triggers those AI detection systems. So whether it's a Turnitin or something similar to that, the consistency of those working is not good. I actually don't even, the university that I work for uses it. I ignore it completely because I believe it's so inconsistent in how it operates.
Yeah, interesting. No, I had not heard that, but that is interesting, because I think
just dig into the research on AI detection software. And that's what I'd encourage people to do, is dig into it before you invest in it.
So, I mean, I could go on and we could talk forever about AI. It's super, it's just really, I think of it as a new frontier, but as you project, if as much as you can, 5 to 10 years from now, what do you think AI is going to look like in the mainstream classroom?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a big divide in schools that adopt it and schools that don't. And you're going to see some even bigger discrepancies in student success because of that. Not to say that schools that use AI will be better off. I don't mean it in that way. But because, and I think one of the greatest struggles we have right now in education is staffing. Like, we just don't have the staff to take care of the needs we have. And schools that utilize AI to fill those gaps, I think, are going to be better off. Now, if you're a school that can already take care of staffing and it's not an issue, I think you'll be just fine. But schools that can't handle that staffing gaps that utilize AI, I think you're going to be able to make sure their students are moving forward appropriately. I also think you're going to see every student have their own individual tutor. That Rick Sola and my own 3 kids, that they're going to have their own tutor that essentially works with them and follows them everywhere they go. That it's embedded within their own, just like they have their own logins for emails and for whatever, they're going to have their own assistant, and they're going to give it a name, and they're going to have Chad. I go to Chad for help and assistance. I really believe that is what's going to be kind of the next big wave for us.
That's interesting. And I think about iPads when those came on the scene, and it's a personal device, an iDevice, and you customize it to yourself. And it's not a far reach to think that we will have those assistants that we customize to ourselves or whatever, or in the classroom. So, like I said, I could go on and ask all sorts of questions. Trevor, where are we going to see you next? Are you going to be at any of our conferences around, or?
I was at KPA. Was that a couple months ago? I had an opportunity to be there. Hope to be at USA here in a few weeks, and always happy to come out and visit individual school districts in Kansas. I'll be out in Holton next week, Topeka, just in Olathe. I was in Lewisburg a couple weeks ago. Lewisburg on Paola a couple weeks ago. So if you're out there, I'd love to come out and help support. Come out and do some PD with you guys. Just help support the growth of appropriate and responsible AI use.
Yeah, Trevor, I'll put your contact information in the show notes here if people have questions, want to reach out and so forth. I really appreciate your time today. Before we go, a lot of times I like to end a show by, kind of a shout out, celebrate of our people. You were connected for 6 years with KPA, and you're in the education world for so long. Any people out there you want to shout out? Or?
Oh man, there's some good ones. And actually, I'm going to start with, he's not with us anymore, but Dwayne Dorshot. Dwayne was the executive director of KPA, and he passed away unexpectedly. Man, it's probably almost been 4 years ago now, but he was a great friend and mentor along with Britton Hart and currently Carrie Leedy. But really a couple principals that have still been great friends. People like Jackie Feist out in Dodge, just an incredible educator. Kristen Kraft there in the Andover area. Just folks that have always, whether it was principalship, whether it's just personally, have always been great friends. Kelly Whitaker down in Ottawa has been such a great friend and resource. Brad Wilson and Rod Sprague. So a lot of good folks that I have great fond memories of. Even good old Ron Berry. Man, he's a superintendent now, but we came in together and I was a superintendent. Same with old Greg Lear. I think he's a superintendent now too. So all these dudes, Nick Olson or Owens, these dudes that started out as principals, now they're superintendents, and just think very highly of a lot of these men and women.
Well, thank you for your contribution, and like I started the top of this podcast with, for your contribution to this podcast here, not just today, but in its beginning, if you will, back over the summer. So you've been a big help, but I really appreciate your time and you sharing this information. This is really good stuff, super interesting, fascinating. We'll definitely look for you here in the upcoming conferences, and stay warm and safe out there.
That's the plan. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Check the notes section for more information on this episode and to learn more about the KPA and its mission to develop and support all principals through optimized learning, collaborative leadership, networking, and service. Be sure to check back in for our next episode and spread the word about cool coffee with Kansas Principals. Catch you next time.